swear to God, he's out there, man.
Nothing could survive out there.
Hello, I'm All Town!
That thing took 3 of our men last week. If it grabs Brian, shoot him.
Sir,
Brian! My favorite little soldier.
we got a message from command. They put something around it, so I didn't even read it.
Yeah, that's called an envelope.
You're on guard duty tonight. Don't wear a helmet.
Skip to 7 minutes for level analysis. Oh, that's never a good sign.
Are we pulling out? I really don't want to shoot Brian.
Hey, there's no bullets in this thing.
Worse, we gotta fill time for the next 5 minutes. That's probably why they sent it to me.
Want me to get the PowerPoint?
No, I learned my lesson. All right, round up the men.
Right. Men, we're all gonna die!
Gentlemen, Shadow the Hedgehog is approaching our position.
What? We haven't even set up all the mines.
Easy there, Reptar. He's our backup, but he's got a lot of ground to cover. Shadow needs to make it through Sunset Heights.
That's great. I used to do peace talks in the Heights. There should be nothing left but rubble, sir. Straight shot to the finish.
It might be, if he just had to deal with generations, but Shadow also has to get through all 5 versions in Sonic Forces. The video game, Sonic Forces. Did none of you play Sonic Forces?
Sir, the Geneva Convention ruled it unethical. We have no copies in our arsenal.
I played Sonic Heroes on the GameCube at my cousin's house.
They don't scream as much with heroes.
Looks like we're gonna need some context. Thankfully, I already made a video explaining the whole situation. I was actually a YouTuber before the war.
Really? My crime was grand larceny. I'm pretty sure Brian ate a guy.
We're gonna talk about that later. It's time to discuss Sonic Forces. I replayed this polarizing title a while back and had a lot of thoughts, which I gathered into a first impressions video, if you want to check it out. But to summarize my findings, I believe Forces was an interesting blueprint that wasn't pushed far enough. With a bit more risk and a bit less hand-holding, this thing could have been memorable. Instead, it became the new example of a bad Sonic game within the fandom. So it was a surprise to many to see it return in Shadow Generations with the stage Sunset Heights. But Sunset Heights is more than a friendly remix, it's a statement. With both games running off the Hedgehog engine too, it's a great example of how the design philosophies of Sonic Team have evolved over the years. Like Rooftop Run, the gameplay between our 2 levels is very close, which makes this comparison far more interesting. But we're gonna have to put in a bit of work, as Generations pulls from more than just Sunset Heights. It includes elements from all the city levels and Forces, 5 to be exact, and today we're gonna go over all of them. But not only that, as Generations Act 2 also needs an inspection, which means today we're gonna go over 7 different levels, chopped up and divided to follow along with Act 1. If you just want to get to the show, here's the time. But if you want to break down how exactly 7 levels share the same city, then gather around.
We're already here.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought there were going to be a lot more of you before Omo Chow started eating people. But we'll make the best with what we got. Let's do this. Okay, stay with me here. Sonic Forces is a game that released in 2017. We got that. You play through it 3 different ways. As Sonic, Classic Sonic, and Avatar. These 3 characters play through a singular campaign together, not separately. It's a team effort to complete 30 levels.
There was also a DLC campaign featuring Shadow, which added 3 more levels.
Right. Now, Sunset Heights is a level in Sonic Forces. It takes place in a city, but it is not the name of the city. Sunset Heights is a location in the city. The city is just called City.
Wait, really? Like, actually?
Yep, 4 other levels take place in the city. Let's break them down. Classic Sonic experiences the city first, on level 3 of the campaign called Ghost Town. Classic Sonic gets his very own 2D map for the city. Brian, do we got any context for this guy?
He just saved Tails, and now they're going after Eggman.
Perfect.
Right after Tails cowered in fear and screamed for
Thank you, Brian. Fantastic work, as always. Now, Avatar enters the city next on level 12 of the campaign called Park Avenue. Park Avenue uses a new 3D map of the city, which also goes 2D in some sections. Just for sanity's sake, let's call this thing the main map. Okay, Ewan, what's Avatar's deal?
He's sent into the city under Knuckles' orders to evacuate some civilians.
Thank you.
Also has a gun.
Yes, he does have a gun. Thank you. Sonic also uses the main map on level 15 of the campaign called Sunset Heights, the stage itself. I'll do the context for Sonic.
Of course you would.
The Resistance learns that Shadow is tearing apart the city, and Sonic rushes in to get some answers. Alright, Colin, you got the DLC?
Gladly. Hello everyone, my name is Colin, second in command.
Hi, Colin.
Just get to the point.
Shadow uses the main map on the first level of his DLC campaign, called Enemy Territory. In regards to the main map, Execution Specialist Brian will go over it in just a second. Also, if anyone has any last words to impart to Brian, please do so before tonight.
What?
Context, Colin. What is Shadow doing?
Shadow is linking up with Omega, who is currently doing a recon op in the city. Also, important to note that Shadow's story occurs a month before the events of Sonic Forces.
Very good. The final city zone is a tag team stage between Sonic and Avatar, and this is level 19 of the campaign, called Redgate Bridge. Thankfully, Redgate Bridge uses a whole new map, but it should also be noted that Redgate Bridge is actually a boss fight with Metal Sonic, which is confusing because it's the only boss fight labeled as a level on the stage select.
That's because it has collectibles in it.
Yes, that's right, Ewan. Thank you.
Is it my turn yet?
Go ahead, Zach. Give us the lowdown.
Finally! Sonic and Avatar fight Metal Sonic.
That's it?
They win.
Awesome! Okay, let's really quickly do the maps.
Can I go to the bathroom?
No. Now, we know Classic Sonic and the tag team boss fight use their own maps, so we got that out of the way. But our 3 remaining levels share the main map. Brian, it's finally your time to shine.
Well, the main map is sort of divided into 3 chunks. A big 3D section in the first chunk, a 2D section in the middle, and a deeper 2D section at the end.
Cool, I'll take it from here.
Hey!
Sonic and Shadow enter at the same point, the start, and end at the same point, the middle. So that's done. Avatar starts a bit further in the 3D portion, but is the only one to continue into that deeper 2D ending. That's where he finishes. And that's the main map. A bit easier this time. Great work there, Brian. Can we get a round of applause for Brian over here?
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Want to finish us up here, Colin?
Hello everyone, my name is...
On with it!
Right. Shadow Generations has 2 acts. Act 1 is all 3D and follows the main map from Forces, but borrows elements from Ghost Town and Redgate Bridge. Act 2 is all in 2D and creates its own layout for the level, but it still borrows aesthetics and set pieces from some of the Forces levels. Adam will tackle them when we get into the comparison.
That I will. So let's finish up. Sonic, Avatar, and Shadow use the main map in their respective levels. Sonic and Avatar duo Redgate Bridge together, and Classic Sonic uses Ghost Town alone. All of which take place in the city called
City.
Good. And that is Sunset Heights 7 different ways for today's comparison. Well, I think that's about everything. It's time to coordinate the run. Let's finally compare Sunset Heights. Alright, so both versions of Sunset Heights begin in the same spot. An explosive introduction at the edge of the city, which I like to call Invasion. Even with all of its faults, I commend how Forces outlined this intro. It's genuinely alive, with powerful sightlines demonstrating Eggman's assault, and I actually think it does one thing smarter than Shadow Generations. But to understand that, we gotta compare. So let's begin with the original. Stage 15 opens with this wide shot of Sonic, bravely standing in the center of a decimated city, with particle effects firing out the wazoo. Hydrants spray up, dark smoke billows from the rubble, and the camera is pitched to the sky, showcasing this fractured bridge in the background. A piece of public infrastructure, snapped in half, aka citizens are in danger. But before we proceed, check out these firebombs. The title cards of Forces sort of come apart in sections, and the first moving object our eyes can track is this initial bomb. It enters the largest opening on the card. It has a ton of room for its trajectory, and it's bright orange against dark gray. These firebombs also have impacts. They don't travel behind the buildings, you see them smash into the sides, with some screen shake for extra effort. Combined with our cracked bridge, it's a clean slice of storytelling in the first 5 seconds. This is what happened while you were gone, and bad news, it's still going on. So let's move our ass and save some animals. Down the road, we anticipate a curve, because this distant building is angled. It's also lit up, and it's got a giant center line pointing right down into the roof. But as we get closer, boom, surprise firebomb comes right in. The fracture is a nice crescent shape, and yet again, that orange fire contrasts well against the gray smoking background. The damage is clear, and it ain't pretty. As we take our curve, we get some more visual assistance, and this one is clever. So a firebomb curves with us, but it's tiny. Feels like some far-off attack in the background, and this girder in the foreground solidifies that because it passes behind the metal. Oh, but when we start our descent, we keep seeing that firebomb, and it is way closer than we thought. It falls into the same valley we're dipping into. It's a smart way to remind you how active this invasion is. Plus, let's look to the sky. This thick portion of the bridge helps our eyes too. Same with this crooked beam. Take note of the contrast here. It's a lot of white paired with dark lines that sort of point towards your directions. A curve right and a drop down. See what I mean? And that's exactly what we do. But as we crest over the hill, we get some more visual fun. Take note of this broken street lamp. One bulb lit, one bulb cracked. Who cares? Well, me, because it's the first street lamp we see that is turned on. All the others are off, and it's the first one we really notice of this design. The ones before the dip are more angular, but halfway through they turn full, Orbot. Whatever, Adam, that's just design nonsense. How does it help us? Well, it lines up our eyes for the upcoming scene. When we finish with the hill, we get this expansive shot of the city, with death egg robots stomping and gunfire spraying. The flashing bulb brings our eyes over there. Don't believe me, huh? Let's crank up the contrast and turn off the lights. And who do we see sprouting up over the hill? Our bulb! Thank you, bulb. Alright, enough about the lamp, Sonic. People are dying. Let's move! Now we jog around this overlook. So you probably see what I'm seeing. A lot of broken frames pointing at a giant moving robot. I actually love this stupid metal fragment because it provides more sense that you're traveling under something when you complete the bridge. It's like more roof for you. It's diegetic too. These beams are sprouting from that thick collapsed portion we saw earlier. And that landscape on our left sure is pretty. So many moving pieces, chunks of city separated by the canal, and the best part, 2 more firebombs. But now we get our boost capsules, and the drama kinda ends, because you fly forward and get caught between these buildings. However, even if the decision is brash, they still ease you in well, because the moment you use the boost is when these metal beams start separating you from the environment. It reminds you that it's game time. And if you want to feel like you're defending the city, you got a line of bowling pins to knock over too. But let's be honest, this start is more interested in showing you the large destruction, rather than letting you have some fun. It's cinematics first, gameplay second. And that's how Sonic Forces handles the invasion. But before we move on to Shadow Gens, let's check out episode Shadow in Sonic Forces. Colin, do you have the file on enemy territory?
Right here, sir.
Thank you. So Shadow Sunset Heights remix within Sonic Forces is called Enemy Territory. It uses the exact same map, and it's pretty darn fun. So since this level takes place before Sonic Forces, the designers removed the bombs, gunfire, and death egg robots. But the destruction remained. Like, our initial building is already fractured when we start the level. The city looks like it just finished with the invasion, rather than being unaware it's about to happen. As for the course, it functions exactly the same. You get your boost a bit earlier, and some more dash pads, but you still barrel through robots and travel up some stairs. This is the hard variant of Sunset Heights, and I feel like they could have done some fun stuff with this intro. Turns out we had to wait 7 years for that one. It's time to see how Shadow Generations handles the invasion. Oh, hell yeah. What a start. Shadow just racing through the streets as we view him from the front. A funny contrast between forces. Sonic looks so small with this low angle. The invasion is presented as this daunting catastrophe, but the framing in Generations has Shadow immediately running past the destruction. Before the title card even splits, he's determined the plight of Sunset Heights is no concern to the ultimate life form. The camera changes are timed with the 2 dash pads he hits. A hard cut on the first pad as he swings his arms towards the direction, very smooth, and then we get our arcing shot on the second pad when things settle back into place. So both versions of Sunset Heights should be taking place at sunset, but Shadow Generations appears to be more midday, as that light is higher up. Another deviation here is the color of the weather. Forces is much more stylized, high contrast, with purple and orange duking it out above the clouds, but Generations keeps things more realistic, with a lower saturation. It's more bright whites and dark grays, with color only getting loud when the sun hits it. Because of this, Forces pops more and Generations gets bleaker. But Sonic Team is still using this color palette correctly. The smoke in Forces looks kinda fuzzy, but Generations uses thick, billowing plumes. You can't catch anything past them. You especially see it right at the start, overwhelming that white sky. But we haven't even crossed 5 seconds yet. Let's keep moving. The city is looking a lot wider this time, but the roads are pretty similar. If you've been watching these videos, then you know the culprit here, the camera. Forces is not super tight like Unleashed, but it is low. Generations is higher up above Shadow. This shows us more of the course. Helps for the gameplay, but hampers the spectacle, which we're about to see. We get our great building explosion again, but it happens more at the top of your screen. It can pass you by real quick. The impact zone is also denser. You have another building behind it, so you lose that clear fracture you get in Forces. And finally, we don't see that broken bridge until we take our turn. And even then, we don't get that clear split at the top, only the twisted supports in the middle. However, that's a lot of aesthetic whining, because they finally gave us what normal people wanted in this section. A bit of gameplay. Nothing crazy, but you get this line of dash rings to jump into as you take your dip, rather than just plunging down normally. And from up here, Sunset Heights is looking really spacious, isn't it? Did they move things around? Not really, because again, our camera is making us feel cramped in Forces. On Shadow's variation, when we have the boost, if we jump at the start, we get a similar positioning with the city blocks. You see that? As we climb our hill, we get a great use of the lighting engine by having the sun shine past this tear in the bridge, overwhelming us. Also positioned so we can catch these 10 rings above. Looky there. Our eyes gotta adjust when we exit the overpass. It continues to be more grounded. Hey! More gameplay additions! A steep drop-off and a ledge interrupts that on-rails nature from before. And we get this new blockade. 2 barriers on either side with a smattering of enemies. This first rock pile hides the rest of the path. Homing this poor robot will send the camera under the support and into view of the rest of them. Homing these dudes isn't anything special, but if it seems too simple, why not bounce over them with the hydrants? The streams suck you in and spit you out on top. You can practice boosting between the water to just skip the robos entirely. But with our final girder ending the intro, we can finish up all instances of invasion. I mentioned earlier that I think Forces does something really smart here. It does not let you boost at the start. Invasion contains very little gameplay, in all versions. Forces primarily uses this piece as environmental spectacle, and it's all timed perfectly because you cannot outrun the moments. It's queued up to make every firebomb and explosion land when they need to. Cinematically, it's doing its job very well. But people don't play Sonic games to look at the background. They want to play a goddamn video game. Shadow Generations gives you boost so early, you can activate it during those initial camera shots. The spectacle is something you're supposed to feel around you here, instead of witness head-on. It's more concerned with adding fun opportunities during this intro, nailing the dash rings to soar over the dip, or timing those hydrants to bounce past the enemies. Forces just hands you the wisps and closes the curtains. So even if I applaud Forces' restraint here, and enjoy its cinematics more, Shadow Generations knows how to read the room. They don't want this automated Forces intro to just run the movie again. They let you progress through it as you please. And in my book, when remixing a Forces level, that was the correct move. I'm more of a pretty colors guy, so I lean Forces here, but I bet a lot of people were thankful they could actually deviate right at the start of Sunset Heights. And enemy territory fails all of this because it removes the setup shots, lets you boost early, and adds no challenge. A rough start, but trust me, it gets a lot better. Alrighty, so Sonic and Shadow of Forces are climbing some stairs, and Shadow of Gens is entering a tunnel. The environments here are different, but the gameplay is pretty similar. And we're about to see 2 new friends enter the fray, as all 5 of our characters start the City Advance. We got a lot of little pieces here to build up the Shadows 2024 tunnel. We need to go over Sonic and Shadows area in Forces, introduce Avatar into the mix, and get classic Sonic rolling before we can understand what they did in Generations. Let's begin with Sonic. After boosting up those stairs, we bonk into a ledge, as is customary whenever I hold a controller, and we're given this homing attack chain in a wide area. The 2 water streams spitting from these grates signal you in for the attack, but the actions here are straightforward. It would be great if you can somehow home further up to these caution signs, but keep that in mind for later. Your 4 shots will get you under the overhang, and these dash pads send you forward, into another ledge. Get it together, Adam! So the curve here and these layers look like an obvious secret route, but you cannot get up there from Sonic's position. Again, keep it in mind. For now, you get the one enriching part of this segment, and even that is a stretch. These 3 egg pawns will send you up the steps, and give you a chance to continue the chain on these buzz bombers, ending with this pulley in the back. It's a fun connection to make, but the lack of challenge sucks all the air out. The bombers do move, but your homing radius is so large, it's not exactly hard to miss. And this red barrier could be a great obstacle to hide your pulley, but it's not leaning far enough to cover it. The worst part, however, if you lose your chance with the buzz bombers, you can just home the pulley from the ground anyways. The flow is fun, but there's no risk of missing it. And the punishment path here just has you homing up some boxes anyways. So that's Sonic's city advancement. Now let's look at how the new guy handles it. Ewan, where's Park Avenue?
Just finished it.
Thank you. Wait, did you draw on this?
Yep. That one's me.
Yeah, pretty. Avatar starts at all those caution signs we saw above us. You get to do one of those cool hook drifts as a firebomb explodes in front of you, and then you swing up that crescent that we also saw earlier. Now we're on those layers, and we can jump towards an auto hook point. And yet again, another missed opportunity. A tricky set of swings could incentivize you to skip the punishment path below, but there is no punishment path below, as you're forced down there anyways. And in a bit of a misleading way too. It looks like you're gonna swing over these guys, but you drop down right in front of them. The game encourages you to use your gun here, but it's kind of imprecise. It's strange to fire on a raised group of enemies, as you're always incentivized to attack on equal ground, so you'd have to jump and fire here, which is awkward. Progressing forward will give you a group positioning you're familiar with, but then it's just a straight shot to the end here, without much fuss. Avatar's errors are more egregious, because you honestly need the right wispin to make this intro enjoyable. Something like the hover gun works well here, as it tackles those elevated enemies in its burst, or the drill if you want to make your own shortcut. Now, let's have the ultimate life form show us how it's done, in enemy territory. Even if enemy territory starts flat, they amp things up here. Not to insane degrees, a casual Sonic fan will probably pass this with flying colors, but the layout is doing everything we wanted. You bounce into this area and are given a chance to home these balloons, and climb up to those caution signs. The punishment path is clear with these spinning spike balls and egg tanks. Plus, we see the difference in our path once we take the crescent on our own terms. This allows us to start another combo which correctly uses the metal girder from earlier, because it helps hide the ending dash ring. It also doesn't pop in on time. It's not a bug, it's a feature, man. Never been to Blighttown? The near miss around this thing is appropriate, and timing the boost into that ring is a terrific way to end your combo. Your punishment path below isn't too dicey, but it's a smidge harder than the stationary spikes. Great stuff. Alright, 3 Forcers have advanced the city, but before we see how Shad Jens tackles this direction, we need to reference our last little guy, Classic Sonic in Ghost Town. Brian, you got Ghost Town?
Yep. Why are there 2 Sonics?
Not now, Brian. This is my first time looking at something so classic-coded on this channel, and my preference is not gonna do me any favors. But I love Ghost Town. I agree, Classic Sonic kinda controls like a brick with wheels, but I think they built a damn good layout for it. Forces' classic control feels the best when you nail it in one nice combo, but exploring the layout can be a bit of a headache with Classic Sonic's sluggish movement. He's great when you bounce where they want you to, but if you try to experiment, you just get frustrated. The comparison here we'll really be making is from the background, as Ghost Town gives us the unique experience of going under the city. The stage has a diverging path that has you spinning past arches, pillars, and storefronts at the bottom, which gives Generations the opportunity to use some of this architecture in its remix. Otherwise, you're just killing robots next to firebombs. But, would you look at those damn backgrounds? They are going crazy! The explosions are endless in Ghost Town, and they shred so many buildings. Plus, the structures in the background are not always flat. They're angled and alive. They're still blowing up. Even the loops here look great. There's so much depth to them with that stone fence. Lastly, that Emerald Hill twirl past a massive Death Egg robot that tracks you as his brothers party behind the collapsed bridge in the waterway should be a set piece of its own, but I'm running out of paper here. Let's hit pause on the little guy, as we now have all the materials we need to investigate Generations' City Advance remix 7 years later. And I'm sure you're clocking the immediate reference. The tunnel here is a clear pool from Ghost Town's underground. It shares similar pillars, arches, and storefronts. But we also get this double water spray before we enter, which was there for Sonic and Shadow back in 2017 too. Our first chunk has more water spouting, serving up some tasty robot, and outlining the path forward. The distressed wobble on these guys is delightful. I almost don't want to kill them. Almost. Anyways, another thing you'll learn here is that egg pawn or non, hydrants fire you upwards, not forwards. With no homing reticle at our end, we realize boosting is a great way to keep us moving forward from the spouts. This off-center ring collection shows us this too. It's better earned by boosting through. But now we got a bottomless pit! Thank God, I nearly forgot I was playing a Sonic game. There's 2 routes here. Let's go bottom first with the homing attack. Climbing on is no biggie. But we also get a great example of Shadow's phasing ability. I'm sure you've noticed by now, but Shadow teleports to his targets rather than homing into them. Well, you can use this teleportation to phase through hazards or even walls. Rather than bouncing up and homing, you can just teleport through the track element to avoid any slowdown. Home quick, and we see it here. Awesome. When we combo to the finish line, we see our final egg pawn start to fly, as the water spout below him sends him up to the ledge, which offers us a quick way to get up there. It feels so snappy because it's a surprise escape, right? It looks like we gotta unlock a spring or something, but as we progress, holy shit, we can just snap up there. Great way of making things feel cool without us doing much of anything. But hey, what about that top route? Quick little thing, but how do we get there? Well, let's use what we know. We boosted to clear the gap at the start, we boosted to grab those rings without much slowdown. Let's be the bigger hedgehog here, resist the home, and boost to this platform. Bingo! Shortcut unlocked. Plus, we still get to kill this bozo. Take that. If you're on legacy controls, then this one might be a surprise for you. It was for me. Love it! And now we have City Advanced with 5 different fellows. Although Generations flips the environment, the navigation is very similar to Shadow's level and Forces. You have 2 chunks of homing chains, separated by a platform. The first is completed by 2 homing attacks with a dash to the end. The second gives you both a top and bottom route to your objective. And that little escape hole building is still there. They just blew out the floor. Not only is the layout similar, the gameplay is functioning just like enemy territory. It's snappy combos all the way to the end. As for Forces itself, the City Advance gives us a great comparison on how the game could ramp itself up. Sonic's route is snappy but straightforward, and Avatar at least gives us some danger, but Shadow's route utilizes all the space by giving us split paths, while still providing some sense of risk through the punishments below. A lot of areas in Forces could have been enhanced by just giving us an extra route with a spike around it, I swear. And as for Classic Sonic, well, it doesn't complement Generations much besides the underground, but I still love it. Alright, we got a big ramp into the sky, but before we take it, let's take a break. We're gonna pause our adventure and get sideways again. No, not with Classic Sonic, with Classic Shadow, as we finally check out Shadow of Generations Act 2! Woo! Hey everyone, look! It's one of the best Act 2s in the whole game! We'll be splitting this one up as well, but I wanted to get into it early because I really do love it. First off, the aesthetic is unmatched, and even calls back to Shadow's original white jungle in SA2. The sky is gray and hazy, distant bridges lose their detail in that fog. And again, look how effective those smoke plumes are. They're sharp, even against goddamn gray. The soundtrack borrows the melancholy feeling from the weather too. It's like Shadow missed his boat out of the city and is racing to exit as the death eggs mop up. But let's talk 2D. If you like shortcuts, then do I have a level for you. Faster routes are unlocked by taking quick actions as high up as can be. A lot of the navigation here is just layers of punishment paths that can be expertly dismissed if you make the right moves. It makes an S rank of this thing so satisfying because you know you're skipping so much. But even in the layers, we see a returning champ. Doom Surf, back and flatter than ever, but losing none of its fun. That's because we still got the dash rings to ferry us onto faster options. Doom Surf in 2D offers an additional challenge as you're platforming on a moving path now. You gotta use the motion of the ocean to keep going. There's no time to stand around and place your shots. It makes even the punishment paths engaging. And beyond the surfing, there's just a ton of snappy combo chains to pull off here. I swear, the reticle sound becomes a part of the song with how much it's beeping. It's a remarkable level, and I want to get further into it later down the line. But for now, I think it's time we tackle our next big shared set piece. Short in timing, but large in stature. All of our heroes are currently staring up at a stone ramp that leads straight into the sky, and it's about time we fly off of it on the rundown ramp. Everyone got this one, but they all go different ways with it. Let's honor the past and start with the Forces boys. Sonic gets the first go, as his is the worst. Into the air we go. I gotta say, the horizon is magnificent. The opening to the clouds on our left is heavenly, and the darker expanse on our right is ominous. Talk about a story select. The actual movement, however, is a bit lackluster. I wish the dash rings weren't so sharp. Makes the camera movements kind of stilted. This firebomb, however, is awesome. We climb from under it, careen over it, and then fall down near its trajectory. So we land with it and really feel that explosion. I feel like Forces works pretty damn well when it's performing during automated segments. It's just that the automation creeps into the gameplay, and fighting it feels like you're pissing off the director or something. But let's touch on our slope here too. Deep angle, we get City Escape vibes with the way these buildings are positioned, and you still got explosions raining down on you. But when we look at the actual pathing here, it's pretty bare. Just dash pads with rings. Alright kid, you're up next. Hold on to your glasses. Avatar gets more action before his jump. He's got to trigger pull some enemies. And then we get this shot. The camera spins left to reveal a massive death egg robot getting peppered with machine gun fire. Here's a weird note. I think they should have had way more of this machine gun fire in Avatar's stage, because when I see it, I imagine other members of the army, like my comrades, are getting work done over there, and now it's time for my part. But to coincide with our dynamic shot, we still got a firebomb directing us into the slope, and it's now hitting a building on our left when we land. Now, Avatar's slope does get some enemies. You have these egg walkers sprinting down with you, which can be trouble if you're using a slower Wispin, like the lightning whip, but if you got the flamethrower on, you can just run right through them. Great spectacle, awkward gameplay. Alright, Shadow the Hedgehog, show us how it's done. Shadow gets the springs, same as Sonic, but he gets no firebombs, nor death egg robots. He also gets no safety net. That's right, this shit is not automated. The jump will drop you into a pit if you're not quick enough. The goal here is to homing attack these egg tank bullets, and make it across the gap, but that's not the only way. On one of my early runs, I missed my first bullet and started falling. "Gimme a reticle!" I screamed, only to remember that I'm Shadow the frickin' Hedgehog, and saved myself with a boost. Some more risk in these levels could provide good opportunities for moments like that. Anyways, Shadow sprints down his slope like Sonic and blasts through these enemies like Avatar. But we'll give you another crack at it, Edgehog, in the future. Take it away, Generations. You see the ramp right as you finish with the tunnel. There's a set of egg pawns blocking your path, which means we're pulling from Avatar's stage. Actually, taking the air though is a lot similar to Sonic's, as we have dash rings that fling us over. Again, not my favorite, but Shad Gens in general is more focused on gameplay, so it doesn't stand out too much in a level that hands you rings right at the start. Plus, they arc this time, letting the camera ease into the skyline. We don't land on a slope, however, and they finally inject some obstacles into the straight. I love the way the egg tank peels out when you hit the floor. Immediately, I was like, oh god, this thing is making room to shoot me, isn't it? It sure is, Adam. But just like Forces, we can home those bullets. These gaps aren't too challenging, but this final ledge can give you a chuckle, because one tank has his back turned. What gives? Well, I'm sure you saw that dash ring above, right? If we can home those bullets, maybe we can home our way up there. Homing a moving target is kinda tough, but that's what chaos control is for. I like this little diversion because you gotta time it correctly. Freezing too quick might not give you the required ammunition you need to get up there. Whenever you get to use chaos control to construct your own pathways, it makes me so happy. Oh boy, I sure hope they do that again. But that's Shadow Gens' slope, or straight. Shad Gens wins the ending chunk here. It offers up gameplay all the way through and lets you discover a new route at the end. As for the jump, however, I gotta give it to Avatar. That midair swivel looks astounding. You feel so small, but also important, because Avatar ain't looking at the robot, he's focused ahead. Your custom character can look dopey in a lot of the scenes, but he comes off cold as hell here. So Force's jump is most effective at showcasing the setting, if we take it from Avatar, but Generations works to add some gameplay, appropriately using Shadow's powers. Bravo. Alright, a lot of our hedgehogs have just sprinted down a long straight line. Let's see where they're headed in this next half of the segment. The Spike Ball Plaza. This will be pretty quick, because nearly every character zooms past this thing. But let's follow our typical order and start with Sonic, in Forces. Sonic straight ends with 3 dash ramps. Taking the middle one will land you arguably where the game prefers you to be, right in front of this homing attack chain that finishes up with a spring. Our surrounding ramps, however, will send us into a zip line, and onto some steps that surround the ending. But if you're a real Sonic gamer, then you're probably boosting off this dash ramp, right? Bad news, no secret route is accessed. You simply fall into the center of the plaza, which means Sonic's trip here is very empty. It's so wide for a section just asking you to move forward, but that's because we're using it more for other people, right? Avatar enters with an auto hook that actually looks pretty sick. You get a hard cut and stare up from your landing zone, watching Avatar use all that space of the crater to make his entrance. He even kicks over some caution signs near the bottom. What a rascal. The momentum from this swing is what I was hoping for at the start. You see him traverse a lot of ground by using his hook, and then you land smack dab in the center of a bunch of robots. Gulp. How are we gonna get out of this one? Oh yeah, I got a gun! A trigger pull and one quick spin will make short work of your audience. And then you get your flavor of Alien to climb those steps. You get this ring trail too that shoots straight into the air, covered by dash rings. Another weird note, I honest to God think if they just obscured their ring trails a bit more, players would not find this game too easy. Seeing so many life coins can make things appear soft, even if you're not collecting them. Just move the positioning and people are gonna feel less handheld. Anyways, we're done with Avatar. Alright, Dark and Stormy, your turn. Shadow will drop down at the front of the plaza if you don't get boosty immediately. We got 2 enemies separated by these swinging spike balls. Now, if we're being honest, this still isn't much of a challenge. You can just go left or right and run past these things. Even interfacing with the gauntlet here just takes one smart boost, but at least you're forced to think. The balloons at the end will pop you up the steps, allowing Shadow to finish the plaza. Tame, but still, risk. And just to touch on that big loop in the background, its job is to transition you from 3D to 2D, but everyone gets a different camera shot. Sonic's gets a bit too tight. All you see is stone and hog. Shadow's stays stationary and tracks him from below. You really see the height of it all. Avatar's is my favorite, however. It follows the wolf but remains wide, showing off all that havoc. It also uses the starting bridge to hide the 2D transition. Very good, Wolf Boy. Before we get too flat, however, one more life form wants a shot at the plaza. To the future! Yet again, we're gonna see Generations focus on some gameplay. The plaza now has 3 paths around it, a center spinning wall of spike ball, and 2 detours. Great setup, but even I still find this too easy. The center spin is not hard to evade. Combined with your boost, you can just soar past this thing. Hell, you could walk it pretty easily. Now the sides are difficult, but there's no incentive to go over there. They do have rings, but you only find that out when you're halfway through. An easy solution here would be to erect a wall around the circle, so you're stuck to your chosen path. Maybe add some sort of hazard to deter you from flying through the center, and make those crates translucent so you dare to attempt the detour for those rings. Make them 10s too, get us hungry. Regardless, I appreciate how they dressed up the plaza. Even if the challenge isn't there, it still feels scary because you are bombarded by hazards. On my first run, I was like, geez, how the hell am I gonna get through all those spikes? Turns out with my legs. But trepidation is important. Getting in the head of the player can make them act erratically. I wonder if some people went overboard on their dodges here and ended up getting hit just because of the presentation of it all. So, I got some bad news. They blew up your loop. But I was able to get you a zip line. Hey. Wash your hands first though, this thing was cheap. A quick twirl, and we're done. So my favorite thing about Shadow Gens' Plaza is that it is all that is left. The buildings surrounding it are gone. Plus, I love how the zip line here echoes the turn. That's just funny. Could you imagine, though, if you saw a chunk of that loop peeking out from the water below? Ooh, that would have tied it all together. The Spikeball Plaza is a short little segment in a wide area, and a lot of our characters don't really use this space. Sonic and Shadow treat it as a line. Avatar gets a circular range of enemies, but he doesn't take his time with the area. Shadow Generations almost nails it. It makes all the right corrections, takes use of the space, splits it into different routes, and adds obstacles. But with the lack of any barriers here, it sort of morphs back into a single line. I legitimately love the detours. I think the platforming can be pretty tough if you're trying to speed through, but there's no incentive to take these alternate directions. Your best route is just moving straight. Still, great switch up with the environment. Knocking over all those buildings makes Sunset Heights look so much more ravaged. But someone's about to throw a rock at Shadow, and I just can't watch this. Let's again pause and switch back over to 2017. Our three boys have entered the second dimension, and they gotta make some headway on this Forces Only segment, Sideways Sunset City. Okie dokie, now we're getting into the actual meat of Forces gameplay. Things are pretty relaxed in 3D, but they put in a lot more thought when things go sideways. Top of the order is one Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic's section, again, has some faults. The sideways city is essentially split into two parts, separated by a tall building with a rail. But just moving forward, we'll have Sonic getting there immediately. You have some spikes and enemies to deter you, but the pits are shallow, and the enemies will chain you right to the top if you engage them. Now, you are encouraged to launch up high at the start, but you're rewarded with a couple of rings and some more easy platforming. It could almost feel easier to just stick to your punishment path and keep running right. Once we mount to the tall building, we transition lower with this curving rail grind that travels through the building we just climbed. Neato. And of course, they're dropping bombs on us. Plus look! Tiny Sonic! Yay! In the second half, a quick boost forward will ask you to jump over some spikes and spring up to more robots, followed by a crescent on the right and a pulley up. A full combo can feel pretty good here when skipping over the spikes and blasting through the robots. The track elements have a nice rhythm, but there is a secret here. Skipping your ending spring and moving left will reveal this lone crate, which hides a surprise spring. However, this silly shortcut highlights another specific gripe I have with Forces. A lot of the secret routes here are built for collectibles, but their layout doesn't serve much purpose on replays. It's like they designed shortcuts for collectibles rather than designing fun shortcuts that they put collectibles on. That's basically this secret box. I think the easiest fix here would be to just have a tricky homing chain above your rail. That way you can use a bit of finesse, bounce towards that crate, and skip all those layers below, while still picking up the collectible. But once we fly up the pulley, we boost down 2 slopes and finish Sonic's Sideways City. And Sonic's level. He flies down towards this shadow homunculus, stops on a dime, and waits for the cutscene, which means the original Sunset Heights itself ends here. But before we activate the ultimate statue, let's let the rookie have a crack at it. On to you, Avatar. This wolf's got a gun, and now we get to use it for some proper shortcuts. You get a burst capsule right at the start, but let's hold off on that and keep moving. Sonic's obstacles are all gone and replaced with a light speed trail. 2 inputs here will put us on top. You'll reach a hook point and get this amazing hard cut of the sun peeking through the clouds, a missile raining down behind you, and Avatar somersaulting in the center. Ooh yeah. We then lose him behind the structure, but what's this? Avatar swings through the hole and hooks again to finish up. This guy gets all the cool shots, I swear. So to keep the second half brief, another light dash will have us hooking up to where Sonic was. No light dash just forces you to trigger pull on your way there. But let's wrap back to that burst capsule and take to the skies. The goal is to keep grabbing capsules to continue your ascent. A full combo here will skip you over the tall building and place you right at the end. Neato, that's a big skip. But you're probably saying it before me, where's the challenge here? If you hit Y in those ring packs, you're golden. Imagine some orbiting spike balls, or even some geometry blocking your path. But before you know it, you hook onto that platform, and we're back to normal. Now, Avatar actually has another chunk of stage to get through, but we'll save that chunk for later. Alright. Final sideway with the final hedgehog. This is where my love for enemy territory really shines. It reminds me a lot of Generations Act 2. Lots of snappy combos that avoid some nasty punishments. Shadow boosts forward and we catch this line of Galaga bees snaking above us. These guys actually showed up in Lost World first, but I never played that one. Anyways, it's a fast action that not only gives us a red ring, it cuts us right to the top. Works for the collectible and on replays. That's what I'm talking about. Now, let's get my first and only criticism out of the way. The endless boxes are not doing this part any favors. I love the background aesthetic of the city, so I was a little disappointed to see them paint over it like a bonus act. It'd be kind of hard to make things work because I know you're going so far up, but still, it can end up feeling like a mod. However, the actual gameplay they injected here is fun as hell. I think if you're just trying to get through it, it might feel a bit stale, as your bottom routes are defended with some slow-moving hazards. But if you challenge yourself to get all the collectibles, you'll have to focus on your rhythm. There's risk in missing a lot of your shots here. Same with this spike ball shaft. The timing here isn't insurmountable, but at least the homing attacks ask you to make some quick decisions. That's because you don't see your option to continue until you land your attack, and the screen shifts down. A full combo is rewarding in that sense. You're figuring it out on the fly. We got a couple more precise timing challenges, and once we reach the final ledge, we slope down to Sonic's exit. But we can still home a B-chain to burst a couple balloons and finish the level. Snappy. While the difficulty here is nothing you can't handle, the inputs are very satisfying. It's a fun peek into what Forces could have been if they just scared us with more risky moves in the Sonic sections. But this is where enemy territory ends. Same with a sideways Sunset City. Forces shines more in its 2D sections, but Sonic and Avatar aren't offering us much here. Different Wispins can make this a legitimately fun timing challenge, but if I were to take in the level layout for all of Avatar's tricks, then it only gets fun with the right settings, you know? Shadow is the inverse of this. His snappy gameplay is exactly what I wanted, but they hid all that beautiful scenery, which makes it look like a fan's correction of a Forces level. So Shadow yet again wins through gameplay. Not too surprising. This is the densest area for all three of our characters in the city. It's a shame it can be traversed so easily. Drizzling some enemy territory on top of these portions could have made them reflect the action behind us. But with the completion of the Sideways City, we finish with both of our Forces hedgehogs. Sonic's Sunset Heights and Shadow's enemy territory are now complete. Avatar still has some work to do, but we're not there yet. For now, let's go back to Generations, but not where you're expecting. It's time to check back in with Shad Gen's Act 2!
Wait!
What?
We forgot Vanish Panel 1.
Isn't that a bonus stage?
But you said we were gonna do all the city levels.
That one is like, I mean, it's short, who cares?
Bickery Box 1 2, put it on his tier list.
It's Vickery. 1, 2, 12. It's obviously 12. Okay, fine. I'm gonna do this in like 5 seconds. Vanish Panel 1 is a bonus level in Forces. You have to platform on panels that vanish. The route here is nothing to clench your teeth at. Thin panels can be jumped through. Thick ones cannot. It's nothing revolutionary. Otherwise, don't stand on the panel when it vanishes and make your way to the end. I will give you this though. On my first playthrough, I decided to home the spring at the end in the last second and flew right over it, which means Vanish Panel 1 claims the only death in this entire video. Congratulations, you yellow sandwich. Okay, we can get into Shadow of Generations Act 2. Hey, look who it is! The Galaga Bees! These guys show up a lot in Act 2, and it's a nice little reference to Shadow's 2D segment from enemy territory. But let's move on to a mini set piece, an old favorite, the Building Rail Loop. Work on that name later, Adam. It uses the same exact camera shot as Sonic's loop, and on closer inspection, it's the exact same building construction too. Like, you can see the incline you use in Sonic Forces right there. They add some cinematic flair here too, by having the firebomb pass the front of the camera, providing Shadow with a little explosion to skate on by. Radical. So, here's another stupid thing I love. Check out this dash ring in our pit. Gee, thanks for the safety net, guys. This isn't very hard to jump over. But, we're thinking too fast here. Expertly jumping over the pit has you platforming over some long layers. But if you get funny and fall into the safety net, it actually springs you up to a pulley, which climbs right over that entire section. It's really crafty, reminding us that if we attempt the slower path, we might just find a faster shortcut. Kingdom Valley Act 2 has something similar to this at the start. It's very cool. This next section was teased before, but they focus on it a lot more here. It's time to deal with some Death Egg timing. This big bozo in the background will target layers and zap them after a couple of seconds. This adds a fun incentive for your chaos control. Activating it will help save those platforms to help you shortcut quicker. I do sometimes wonder if the explosions should have harmed you to add to the challenge. Like on this next section, it's kind of easier to just let him blow up the platform you're standing on to help you fall sooner. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. Should the explosions harm you, or would it interrupt the flow? Let me know. Otherwise, we get more examples of suppressing our instincts to snag faster opportunities. If you resist the urge to hit the Doom Surf dash ring here and jump over it instead, you can shortcut up 3 B chains. And if you fail that section, it's better to ignore this enticing reticle and spear the alien first, which immediately opens this dude up for a Doom Blast. Not only do we gotta be quick, we gotta be calm to triumph over Act 2. Either way, you finish that chunk of layers and stomp down towards another rail. But we've gone sideways for too long. I'm getting a headache. Let's freeze Act 2 in this position and resume Act 1 in another. A boulder is about to flatten our poor edgy hedgy on this next tiny set piece, Rubble Rain Road. I will not give you the satisfaction of watching Shadow get bricked. Let's be smart and take it slow. To begin, Great framing. I'm gonna go off about another plume here, but it's a perfect indicator to bring your eyesight down towards that robot slinging rocks. There's some clumps of rubble to hide behind, but it's not too necessary, nor abundant. The boulders are pretty staggered, so the run isn't anything to worry about. At the end, you're gonna hit some water spouts. The one near the freeway doesn't get you high enough for a transfer. Just kidding, it totally does. Don't look at this. But the other one will let you grab a zip line and has you swinging right towards the tunnel. A pulley up will bring us to a big bridge. But we still have one remaining question. How the hell do we get on that damn freeway? Where is the spring? Where is the homing chain? My friend, the homing chain was within you the whole time. Kinda. The homing chain is flying above you, but the ability to access it was within you the whole time. With a flash of chaos control, we make our own route from the boulders, and we're on the freeway. It's such a brilliant skip, only possible in Shadow Generations. I also like the way it demonstrates Shadow's focus on the task at hand. He doesn't chaos control to kill the robot, does he? He does it to climb its attack and then leaves. Even in this massive invasion, he does not give a damn. Well, not in this game.
Damn.
Not only does it play with the setting, it lets Shadow's powers shine during your run. Stopping time to go faster never felt so good. But now we're on another road, and we're finally putting our feet on those red bridges we keep seeing. On to the second stone set piece, the Big Boulder Bridge. Shadow isn't the only one stepping onto this thing. To understand the environment and changes, we're gonna have to compare this set piece to a brand new Forces level, Redgate Bridge. All right, Reptar, you got the Redgate?
My name is Zach.
Yeah, sure it is. This is an Avatar Sonic tag team level, which doesn't mean much for what's up ahead. But we begin on a red bridge, which looks way smaller than the one we saw in Shadow Generations. This is the wrong bridge. And there it goes. This level begins with a short set piece. A Death Egg robot smashes your path, and now you and the fastest thing alive gotta take it out. Good news, it only takes 2 button presses. Great job, team. Love the framing here, but so many new perspectives can throw us off. The new shots are also not cohesive to how we've been playing this game. Not a bad thing necessarily, but if this was one continuous shot, maybe with just a single hard cut after we hit the QTE, it would feel much more natural with the way we've been seeing Sonic operate. Kinda like, look at this crazy thing that happened in between my gameplay versus look at this crazy thing that happened during my gameplay. Compare this to something like Capital City. The camera flows into a ton of those spectacle shots rather than cutting around every scene, you know? Anyways, after you poke this thing's eyeball out, you land far down into a sewer. Keep that in the back of your mind. But we gotta move our legs forward because the coolest Sonic character in the world is waiting for us on Redgate Bridge, and we gotta murder him. What? I didn't sign up for this. I just wanted to pay for my tuition. Clown College is like $40K. So, surprise, surprise, Redgate Bridge is not a level. It's a boss fight, where you gotta fight a one Metal Sonic. No, this is not the real Metal Sonic. It's a fake created by Infinite. Do you take commissions, Infinite? Just 2 full bodies holding hands. Line art is fine. No, I don't have a reference sheet. Anyways, we get a sick-ass remix of the US Stardust theme, and we're off to the races. We chase Metal Sonic down a long-ass bridge as he lays out traps and minions. If there's one thing that's not Infinite here, it's the bridge. Because believe it or not, the bridge has an ending. It does not repeat. If you don't stimulate the robot enough, he just flies off at the end of the level. You can also die if you don't move too. Bet you've never seen that one before. Even if the backdrop is pretty radical, the actual mechanics ain't. Shoot forward, slap him around a bit, and double boost through my fully modeled VTuber rig. Hey, I paid for that! But we're here for the bridge, goddammit. It's big, red, and ripped to pieces. That's all I got. But red bridges are important to Forces. They even get a seat next to Knuckles right on the cover. Shadow Generations has no problem keeping that bridge ever present, but you know they had to let us run over it. So let's cross Redgate off the Forces list and see what Shadow Generations does with this all-important infrastructure. And oh my god, it's everything I wanted from Rubble Rain Road and more. It ain't just one robot, it's 2, daring Shadow the Hedgehog to catch these bricks with his teeth. And the path this time has hazards, and enemies, and gaps. They read my mind. It makes the run against the barrage so exhilarating because you gotta watch both the skies and the ground. It's a tough challenge to keep your boost, make the jumps, and miss the boulders. And another thing I love, if you took your chaos control shortcut to get here, then you got nothing left in the tank for this road. You gotta dodge these things in real time. Plus, they still signal your obstacles well. Notice how every gap has caution signs around it, or that our 2 big smoke plumes, here we go again, point to both Death Egg robots. There's a lot going on, but the signals are there if you pay attention. And then we end with this fantastic segment. A dash ramp will fling Shadow across the gap and right into these giant mechs. And it's not like he's dodging those claws, he's juking them. Shadow triggers the attack by air boosting towards the robot. He spins around the hand, grinds on the arm, launches right over the next extension. Looks like all those Olympic Games have been paying off. And right before he gets atomized, he flattens his body and skips the laser, soon plummeting, twirling, and my favorite tiny detail, the man rolls when he lands from the big height. Thank you. So this scene is clearly a reference to Redgate's opener, but this time all in one continuous shot and only taking you around 9 seconds, whereas Forces is around 23. You get no QTEs though. Sorry. I thought Rubble Rain Road was kind of flat, but in hindsight, it acts as a mini tutorial for this bridge. But the gameplay elements they stuffed into this thing are wonderful. If anything, it begs more questions from the Forces level. Like, why aren't there gaps in the bridge? Or taller sections? Maybe you'd have to climb them to land a hit on Metal Sonic. We actually see a lot of this applied to the Metal Overlord fight later in Generations. It's another moving pathway boss, but it's so much more dynamic. Seeing these two side by side is a nice way to visualize Sonic Team's boss evolution. Man, I gotta get to that boss comparison one day, huh? Even if the similarities are loose, this is the best adaptation from Forces in my book. They took the concept of Redgate Bridge and perfected it. Incredible. But now Shadow's gonna fall down a great big hole. What else is new? This underground section is referencing our last 2 Forces levels, so let's chop them all up in the Spearhead Sewer. No Forces level goes 3D for its underground, but a lot of the aesthetics are still borrowed from Park Avenue and Ghost Town, so before we send Generations down below, let's wrap up Avatar and Classic Sonic, in that order. So Avatar sprints down a massive wall and runs out of runway. If you don't hook fast enough, you'll drop down into a large blown out area, where a rail will spin you not once, but twice, all the way down to the underground. Take note. The actual layout here is just one long hallway with enemies to gun down. You hop up some platforms and you're out of the sewer. If we nab the hook point at the start, we travel over the top and burst through a lot of enemies. If you get stuck underground, you can lightning dash out with a wisp, or avoid the tunnel entirely by hopping over your second dash pad on the rail, firing out the sewer. Neato. So my main issue here is that all the shortcuts take you away from an easier route. The punishment path at the bottom is just one straight line. If you hold down the flamethrower, sure, you still gotta climb out, but your escape is guaranteed. The blueprints are there with that top path. I think it just needs some obstructive geometry in the sewers to encourage us out of there, you know? But it's not like they're failing on the backgrounds. The top route still has that energy, and even if the bottom is pretty drab, it still has depth and visual flair to sell the environment. All in all, that wraps up Avatar, and we are done with him. But someone else also goes deep underground, and he's been missing from this video for too long. Let's reconvene with the Sonic of the past at Ghost Town.
Sir!
What?
We found the last bonus stage. Fire Cannon 2.
Turns out, it was next to Fire Cannon 1!
Give me that! Hey, let's look at the hardest level in this entire video. And it's from Forces too, please don't kill me. Although the construction isn't too difficult to navigate, the challenge here is based more on timing. You gotta get through a layered gauntlet of fire cannons that flick on and off continuously, which means the goal here is to get into a good rhythm and pull off a clean run. And it takes a bit of practice. Seriously. Took me half an hour to get a sub 45 with no damage. And an S rank. You don't see those every day. There's fun little secrets to discover here, like how sliding will avoid some of the flames. Or, get this, shortcuts. In this one little area, you can go left instead of right to shave some seconds off. How about that? All that being said, I still do kind of like the timing challenge here. It is absolutely just memorization, but you're always so close. Just one more retry away. Surely, you cracked all the other parts, you can easily pass this next area if you just... Okay, now, Ghost Town. It's classic time. Well, we've been getting a lot of that, but this dude can't homing attack. Classic Sonic drops down to the underground, and we get the full brunt of that sewer vibe with these open pipes. And you know they're sending us around them. Twice. I swear to God, I balk at Classic Sonic's inclusion in Forces, but watching him take a classic loop around this modern utility piece, I get that Speed Highway feeling all over again. Like, holy shit, Sonic is loose in our world. He's playing around in it. And the goddamn depth of these things, the lighting, I just want to climb right in there. God, I love them. All right, enough glazing these pipes. I cannot say that. Let's keep moving. So Ghost Town gets triple layered as we head for the end, as many escapes from the bottom still involve routes of their own. But I want to quickly go over the top path because, oh my god, there is so much going on. The backdrop is dynamic and busy. You can see the depth through the streets, and they provide a lot of moments that cut the foreground entirely, just to show off all that destruction. Heck, even with the foreground, look how this shot is framed. The Death Egg robots come off bigger because we only see the top of their bodies from varying distances. They look terrifying, and they look everywhere. God, I love this level. You can probably tell. I know this is an absolutely insane take, and please be gentle, but I think this is one of my favorite classic Sonic stages of all time. A huge part of that is the aesthetic, let's be honest. Classic Sonic rolling through a bombarded city is something I never knew I needed. And you might want to kill me for this next take, but I don't think he controls too bad, large asterisk, on this level. Ghost Town is crafted precisely for Classic Sonic's weighty feeling in Forces. There's a lot of opportunities to bounce off enemies and keep your speed going without dropping like a brick. If you're good enough. Okay, just kidding. That's too far. I believe his density works well with the combos they line up for you. This guy's got problems, but he shines in Ghost Town. And so do I, clearly. But with Ghost Town off the list and the underground in our mind, we finish the last of our 5 Forces levels and can finally witness Shadow the Hedgehog. tackle the sewers in 3D. We are now underground Sunset Heights. I'm sorry, City. This section uses a lot of your Doom Spears to tackle enemies flying down spacious hallways. It's kind of alarming the space you do get. Those first homing attacks are so cramped, but when you exit the tunnel, by God, is the room huge. You really feel the scale of this first part because they spring you into the atrium. Landing into the environment helps you experience some of that volume firsthand. So, spearing these guys is no trouble, but a spear does not stun in this room, which means you gotta use that chaos control to freeze this man and Doom blast him into the circle. This lets you skate down a tube and dash ring over the punishment path. But this does make us miss a different shortcut and a collectible, and I know you want that. See, if we just spear like normal, we'll actually meet him again on the bottom path. Blasting this son of a gun lets us fly over that upcoming gap and climb into the next area. But if we aim our sights even further, we'll find another blast point with an art token. So now you can see that beautiful hero's render. You're welcome. Either way, we're on to our last long hallway. The first stretch isn't too difficult, but on the second half of the hallway, you are thrown another alien trio in midair. A homing attack will dodge you right out of the way, and then you get to deal with the man himself. We got one more secret to discover, however, which helped me discover something about myself. This crate is so goddamn hard to hit. Every time I try and jump over there, I just home the stupid spring instead. I figured it needed an accurate boost, but even that is hard to nail. It took me so many attempts to finally land on this thing, so I had to look online. And people were jumping without homing the spring. What dark magic are they implementing? Is this a secret? A special move? A hidden technique? Oh my god, I'm using legacy controls. When your jump is not tied to your homing attack, you can land on this thing pretty easily. And the rail above has you skipping over that slow Doom blast. And then we're done. Spearhead Sewer challenges you more on the actions rather than the layout, as some of the straights are very empty, and you entertain yourself more through your moves. That being said, I really like how spacious the environment is here. The Forces levels use the sewers as tight corridors, but Generations uses it as the most open part of the level. The punishment paths here are pretty barren. If you can correctly land those blasts, it feels much more rewarding skating down these tight tunnels and skipping right over all those massive rooms. The shortcuts kind of echo Forces in that way, but aesthetically, the sewer is very bland. The simple shapes and repeated geometry make it look like a work in progress. But spearing is the real thrill here. It staggers on style, but runs on gameplay. Now we've completed the sewers, and we're boosting towards the ending. But even if Forces is done, a final level remains, and it goes underground too! So let's round out Shadow of Generations! Act 2. Yeah, we'll go 3D, I promise, but Act 2 also gets an underground diversion, and it's so good. But first, one of the coolest grind shots in all of Sonic! A quick camera turn as Shadow spirals down a rail while getting bombarded by firebombs. He spins around the fracture in the bridge, and the rail starts to blend with all that splayed out metal in the foreground. And the bombs keep coming, like they're launching all they got! Someone get that damn hedgehog, he's grinding out of here! Then a smooth-ass transition back to 2D, hidden through this pipe. Marvelous. But keep your fingers primed, because we are already making switches, and this is one of the rare occasions where the punishment path is more fun. To me. See, if you home the top rail here, you'll be placed into a staggered platforming segment with a bunch of sewer pipes that will burst occasionally with water. You can still clear it with some well-placed jumps and boosts, but going down immediately has you surfing again, and they give you slopes to pick up speed, crescents to boost through. Your platforming is done through dash rings. You see what I mean? It's much more exciting at the bottom. Now we're in another large chamber, reminiscent to the one at the start of Act 1's Underground. You get two routes here, but both put you on the same path. Climbing up will just get you a zip line that travels below, right where your surf would have taken you. Then you scale more layers while surfing. It's so fast and so fun. Plus, we got obstacles in the waterway now. It's a great evolution of the mechanics we saw at play earlier in the level. Near the end, we get a great hard cut as Shadow surfs down his last slope, and then he's out of the sewer. But there is one final secret hiding around here, because we passed a ring trail back here that I didn't touch on. Where the hell does that come from? Well, if we reverse back to the large open waterway, we're gonna notice something flash after we jump over the spike ball. A sneaky homing reticle at the top right of our screen. Let's take the leap. Oh my god, it's a B-chain. Oh my god, we're on a higher route. Eventually you launch up and are given some slowdown on our last hazard. And what awaits us at the end? A handy-dandy chaos dash. So long, rest of the level. We got places to be. Alright, final Act 2 mini set piece. It's tiny, but it's grand. That makes no sense. We're out in the rain again, and we see another Death Egg robot to our left. It can be a bit exhausting at this point, expecting another timing challenge after all that fun surfing, but don't worry, the giant here just slaps your platforms. You can easily jump over his hand and grind on down to the end. But they gave us a chaos control for a reason, right? And I already hear ya. We made it through anyways, though. Do we really need to slow him down? Yes, you do, but after he shows his hand, because we are going to freeze it in midair, and then Doom Blast it down to the goal ring. Look at that spin! Double spin! It spins twice! I even let you home the rail too, just for kicks. It's awesome. And that is Shadow of Generations of Sunset Heights actualization 2. And it is so good. I'm running out of adjectives here, but if you don't believe me, try this thing for yourself. It's just constant, uninterrupted bouncing through air and sea. At first, I thought the sideways surf was a little annoying, but now I wish we got more of it. It isn't obtrusive at all. It's some of my favorite parts of the level. I also love how clear the shortcuts are here. The back and forth punishment paths are so plain that when you hit the pulley, it's like, holy shit, I just skipped 3 runways. Eat shit, rectangles. And even when they stall things with a cinematic, it looks wonderful. The attacks by the rails especially. Ooh, that's good. It's hands down my favorite Act 2 in the whole game. Ended up beating Kingdom Valley for me. And I even think it excels past Act 1 in some ways. But with Act 2 done, we can finally finish up. Shadow of Act 1 is exiting the sewers. And... hey, that should be Shadow! Ewan, get the door!
Oh my god! It's an angel!
Oh, no, that's just Black Doom. Listen, man, we don't have any food, okay? Where's Shadow?
Fools, Shadow's not coming. You bastard. We were gonna kill Shadow.
Wrong, Reptar. I sent him to the Doom Zone. You see this part right here above the clouds? There should be a rail grind section.
Does it have obstacles?
No, it's a cutscene. When he drops down to the section, then you get control.
Oh, well that clears it up. Alright everyone, let's go over the Doom Zone.
I drew that.
No, you didn't. Yay, we get to talk about the Doom Zones. And we even get to start with the best one. The intro is great. What can I say? With chunks of building falling on top of Shadow and him just flipping past each one. God, they really know how to animate him now. And the little reveal here is superb. Shadow drops onto a single rail and looks around like an idiot. What, never seen a rail before? Well, turns out we're not seeing what he's seen, as the camera soon corrects itself and oh shit, he's grinding upside down. Isn't that great? The rail doesn't twist, we do. It was upside down the whole time. That's why Shadow was freaking out. We just didn't realize it. And then, we're gaming. Shadow hits the floor, grabs the next rail, and the song explodes. We get flung into the center of this web of stone, which wraps around Shadow, and we're given our first tube. But, back on solid ground we go. So we got 2 routes here. The first is obvious, as the rings outline our path. Climb the stairs and hit the spring. Now, this is Black Doom's domain, so we will be getting a bit of radical highway here. But, the freeway is straight and simple. An easy completion of Route 1. Route 2 is more hidden, but I'm sure you saw it hanging on top of us. To get there, we're gonna forego the platforms and hit these wooden gun crates. This launches you onto a circular rail, which places you above the previous path. So grabbing the rail behind the alien just places us back on Radical Highway. But Doom blasting him sends us towards some dash rings in the sky. Boost into these, and we got a straight shot to the end. Hell yeah. Time for Tube 2, and my personal favorite, since Black Doom warps the rigid buildings into a bendy straw as he propels through with you. It's incredible because boosting here will keep you up to speed with a lot of the warping. You can chase it well into the curve, and we can't relax either, as we got hazards and enemies now. But the exit out of here, oh my lord, is it good. You spring and attach yourself to another rail upside down, and the camera does not give a shit. It refuses to spin, which means you gotta get through this next section with the wrong camera shot. Considering Rail Canyon already gave you a taste of the triple grind, this is such a great play on it, especially because they still throw obstacles at you. The spikes can mess you up here if you get cocky and boost through the moment, but only 3 sets will deter you until you spring onto a platform and transfer into Tube 3. The flavor this time is Radical Highway. Figured we'd give you something new, and the speed in this thing does not mess around. It's easy to run into these doom barriers and lose some rings. There's also a couple of openings with rails strung across. Taking the top one at the end will send you on a straighter rail that goes through the curving ones, and then you're onto the final tunnel. This part can still mess me up on replays, as Shadow is always moving forward, which means you gotta nail these tunnel spins, or you are going to be wading through purple pain. I think they knew this would happen because they give you a lot of safety mechs to home into if you lose your footing. And finally, we get to slam the starfish. You don't have to do this, by the way. If you just skate past him, the level still ends. But the finish here is spectacular. The tube shoots Shadow out like a cannon, straight into the air as he strikes a pose right when they unlock and refill our chaos control meter. Plus, the background is staged exquisitely. Collapsed red bridge, smoldering city, and the black plumes! You guys made it! Let's bask in their smoky glory and skate on into the goal ring. Most Doom zones are large runways, but this one is my favorite because it doesn't let up. You're hit with tube after tube, each building on difficulty, and the grinds between are spectacular. The one area that asks you to slow down can be quickly bypassed by using the shortcut. It's such a constant segment. I typically dislike the Doom zones because it feels like 2 levels stitched together, but this segment is just more Sunset Heights. The long hallways and homing chains fit with what we've been experiencing in the rest of the level. It's sick as hell, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. They roll the credits right when we're out of there. That's what I'm talking about. And with that, we officially complete every version of Sunset Heights. We did it, Shadow! We saved the city! Bye-bye. See ya. You know, he was a pretty nice guy.
Yeah, and we only had to give him Brian.
All right, comrades, this one comes down from the top. How does Sunset Heights make you feel? In Sonic Forces, I feel like the city needs me. Sonic's defiant pose as he stands before a burning cityscape says it all. He's here to help, but he looks so small against the ruins. The music may be inspiring, but the situation is dire. You did not get here in time. Bombs are already demolishing people's homes, and none of those Death Egg robots are getting taken care of. But your job is to get to Shadow in the city, not to save it. How could you? This isn't an attack, it's a war. You're just one part of the army. To repel this is a team effort, and your job is further inside. So you speed past the destruction, defending what you can, but keeping your eyes on the prize. In a very bizarre way, Sonic's limited difficulty here makes sense. In my mind, he's picked the fastest route with the least obstacles because he knows he can't stop the assault, but he can get to where he needs to be as fast as possible. He boosts past enemies, scales platforms quickly, and encounters very little resistance. It fits his narrative, but a good level, that does not make. The atmosphere of Sunset Heights is exceptional. It's my favorite location in Forces, but the gameplay is disappointing, because it should be hard. This feels like a final level. There should be legions of egg pawns in my way. Buildings should be falling on me. I should have to dodge those firebombs. But the drama happens in the background. The route ahead is too simple. And that goes for everyone here, even Episode Shadow. I love that stage, but it didn't kick my ass. And it's such a letdown that the hardest variant strips all the drama around us. No bombs, no big robots, just a run through a ruin. Redgate Bridge plays with the landmarks, but not in any meaningful way. The bridge is just a road. It's not dynamic. It's a flat path. To me, the one stage that accurately translates the drama of the setting is Ghost Town. It's so explosive. You are overwhelmed by the presence of those Death Egg robots. They're everywhere. They're so huge. And you travel all around the city, on top and down below. Plus, I feel all that danger through the gameplay. There's a lot of enemies there, and if you don't get your bounces right, you will be dropping rings. It's great, but that's Ghost Town, not Sunset Heights. The actual source material here leaves a lot to be desired. There's glimpses of a good level in all of these stages. Sonic's flow is fun, he just needs more risk. Avatar can be a totally different experience with the right weapon. Shadow could have turned heads with a new backdrop. That boss battle should have used Avatar's hooks over gaps and Sonic's double jump to land hits. And maybe if classic Sonic wasn't so heavy, he'd let people explore more of that environment. It's just so painfully mismanaged. Forces succeeds in its setting. I've never cared so much about one of Sonic's cities in any of these games. I want to explore that place more. A hub world here would make me so happy. So ultimately, that's what I connected with in Forces. Even if the gameplay didn't wow me, I couldn't stop loving that setting. I love that city. But when I play the remix in Shadow Generations, I couldn't give two shits about that city. Shadow's not even looking at it. He zips right past the carnage before they even let us use the thumbstick. It's not that it misrepresents the city, it's that I couldn't believe how much I was focusing on the gameplay instead. All the attention is focused on your direct path. The drama is there, sure, but it doesn't take the stage like in Forces, because Shadow takes the stage here. The enemy positioning helps demonstrate his powers. There are dangerous shortcuts that only the ultimate lifeform can take. And just as a remix of Sunset Heights, they go above and beyond and bring in elements from all over the city. The Redgate Bridge is back as a proper set piece. The underground from Ghost Town is fleshed out more. They morphed tepid straits into playable sections. Plus, it's got the best Doom Zone of the three in my book. But what about Act 2? Act 2 shows us a darker part of the city that even classic Sonic couldn't touch. You ever notice how it's the only Act 2 to have a different weather pattern? It goes beyond a sideways segment. It plants itself firmly among the other Act 1s. It's such a constant, aggressive stage. Doom Surf in 2D works so well when incorporating the dash ring platforming. The Galagabees are hard to master, and the shortcuts are gigantic. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I like it more than Act 1. Who knew I'd come out loving the side-scrollers the best here, huh? But back to the heights. Very interesting thing this remix does is that it still represents Force's level design. It's not very open. It's a tight hallway all the way through. Even the Doom Zone is just narrow tubes. But there are still alternate paths to take. You're rarely just running on leveled ground. It makes for a great comparison on how Sonic Team evolved their level layouts over the years and tweaked that engine to play well with it. Despite all my hype though, I don't know if it's my favorite stage here. Kingdom Valley and Chaos Island are hard to beat for me, but the way they were able to fix this level up while still remaining faithful to the original, in not just tone, but layout, is a sight to behold. I wonder if that's why this one was requested so much. Not just because you loved the level, but you loved how they evolved it. On first glance, it looks similar, but if we really clue in, it shows exactly what they learned. And that's where it lands for me. In Forces, I love the setting. In Generations, I love the gameplay. But combined, they make for one of the most intriguing evolutions in all of Generations. Well, until we get that boom level, Shadow was there, Sega, come on! And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we will leave things. But I gotta know, how does Sunset Heights make you feel? And here's a challenge. What is one thing that Forces got right here, and one thing Generations got wrong? I was very excited about doing this comparison. I knew it was gonna be another big one like Kingdom Valley. So thank you so much for watching if you made it to the end. And hey, if you enjoyed the intro this time, then do I got a treat for you. Everyone in it is performing a fun tabletop podcast together, myself included. It's run by the second in command. He puts a lot of time into it, and this ain't his first rodeo. So if you enjoyed our banter, we got more where that came from. Links in the description if you want to check it out. And if you give it a shot, then you get a big thanks from all of us. Isn't that right, boys?
Thank you.
They're all trapped in here with me. So this one took me way longer than I wanted it to. I'm sorry for the wait. It also took a lot out of me, so I might need to take a little itty-bitty break before I start the next video. So the following vids for a bit might be a little shorter. As for the next analysis, I think I need a breather. Something easy. So we're actually gonna tackle our first classic stage on this channel. It's one of my favorites, and I'm not kidding when I say literally no one requested it. Not one comment. This one's for the A-man. Sorry. Also, just to save you a comment, I did see the Unleashed recompile. It's glorious. Amazing. Anytime I responded to a comment saying I wish this game was more available, now it totally is. In the best way, too. I don't know if I'll make a video on it, considering other people can probably go into it better than I could, but you should seriously check this thing out. It's incredible. So many details, too. In terms of future Unleashed videos, I'll probably just keep capturing Xbox footage to keep things consistent. Plus, I always like the idea of running these games on like a big ugly console rather than like a souped up PC. I think if I ever do like a compilation of the Unleashed episodes in the future, maybe I'll re-record things with a PC port. Links below in the description though, check it out. It's remarkable what they did with it. Anyways, thanks again for watching. Love you guys, and I'll see you on a classic stage. What everyone wanted. Bye bye!